Hello, Facebook. Saturday afternoon here in Australia. Some of you other people are on Friday still. So, how to access your magic love making mastery potential? I want to get on here and rave a bit about that today. So, I just wait a minute and see if some other people might want to come on before I start to deliver my content. So, I need to put my glasses on when I check that everything's working. Looks like it's working. Yeah. Yeah, so what I wanted to share today, so this is directed primarily to the men who might struggle with lasting in bed with, premature ejaculation or early ejaculation, however you want to call it. But it actually also applies to guys who might be, more of the delayed ejaculation type. Actually applies to all the sexual so-called dysfunctions. I don't like that word anyway, because it's not a dysfunction. So what I wanted to share is in regards to, I think a lot of guys think that it's really, really maybe kind of, it seems too hard to last, like you compare yourself to the porn stars, for example, and what they're doing looks like it's kind of crazy stuff they do. So if you're a guy who's struggled to last, you might just last for a few minutes or less than that in bed. It seems like what the porn stars do is just like, you might think that you're just not made for it, and that it's impossible. So you kind of I think a lot of guys actually, they kind of put it into too hard basket, and they just kind of settle for what they know, and try and make the most of that. Get really, really good at oral and foreplay and that stuff. That's really common for the guys that struggle to last, to get really, really good at all the other bits and pieces to make sure your girlfriend or, wife or partner has, orgasm before penetration, for example, So kind of in different way making up for that you still haven't figured out how to last. So what I want to share today, it's in regards to two different paradigms. I like to talk about it this way. So if you look at porn and the whole porn culture, which has really become, it has become the mainstream culture when it comes to sex. This is where people get the information from, and this is where the whole young generation are programmed to the point that we believe what porn is presenting us, and take that as some kind of normal, and I like to kind of wrap up also, other mainstream education and even the medical approach to sex in that paradigm, which I call the kind of the old or the outdated paradigm, because it's really focused on looking at sex from a very kind of mechanical point of view. It's like the mechanical era, and it's all about doing the right thing, for instance, having the right technique, pushing the right button, knowing all the tips and tricks and positions, changing your woman around in positions like you're switching the channels of remote control. It's all about, a lot of kind of head fuck for a lot of guys. They think and worry about what to do, how to be good in bed, what to do the right thing. How can I make her come? How can I turn her on? And from that point of view, first of all, it's like you're operating from a mindset that is really quite irrelevant if you're talking about sex and intimacy. So it's the kind of doing mindset that's worked very well for us in the world, and it's all very 3D of doing the right things to make the right stuff happen. And when it comes to sex and intimacy, this mindset of doing is not really, or it's only going to get you so far. It's a limited mindset, because even if you do all the right things, but you're staying in the mindset of doing and figuring out and trying to do the right thing, you, from that place, you're not going to be able to tap into the next paradigm, which is where all the magic happens. And this is what I talk about a lot. You hear me use words like magic lovemaking abilities, or divine lovemaking, or sacred sex. So those words might be really kind of unknown or not something that you would use as a guy. A lot of guys might go like, what's she talking about, you know? So that's what I want to make really clear today. The reason I use those words is because I'm really talking about and referring to a very different dimension, a different paradigm. And the way most people have been indoctrinated, and this has come a long way through the suppression of the religious suppression of sexuality that then got distorted and suppressed and came out in a kind of mutated form through pornography that's now become the new norm. And within that whole area, sexuality is very much focused on the lower energy centers of the body. It's all focused on the area where sex comes from, the lower base chakras, if we use it, you know, in the Indian term. So the lower parts of the body. And as long as we connect with our sexuality from that place, it's going to be a very basic primal sex. It's all about the sexual urges. It's all about ejaculation and orgasm and climax and release. And for a lot of guys, you know, and women too, this might be working. You know, if you're happy with your sex life, you know, scroll on. I'm not for you. But I know there's a lot of guys, especially the guys struggling with early and premature ejaculation. As long as you are trapped in that old paradigm where it's all about the base chakra urges and the sexual energy is mainly operating within the lower parts of the body, which will make you be very focused on orgasm and ejaculation, and you will not be able to support yourself to last. As long as you are operating within that paradigm, learning to last longer is very, very difficult, if not impossible. So that's why for a lot of guys, they give up. And, you know, or if they manage to last a bit longer, it's only fractional, like maybe another minute, maybe another few minutes, but it's still pretty much the same thing. So I talk to men that even assume that it's not possible to last longer, or that you've got to be some kind of freak of nature to last longer. So what I'm here to share today is that, yes, as long as you're looking at sex from, you know, that place of having been really influenced by porn and looking at the porn stars, you know, and thinking that it's kind of some really rocket science skill that you have to learn, and that seems like impossible. That's because you're coming from that place that's really all about doing. So when it comes to what I'm trying to share here, in the next dimension, in the next paradigm, it's much more about being. It's not about doing. So it's not something that you can figure out in your head. It's not something that you can copy from the porn stars. It's not something that you can manipulate from a place of trying to impress or perform. In fact, it's got nothing to do with performance. So that word is really belongs to the old paradigm sex. So what the next paradigm has to do with, it's got to do with getting to know your sexual energy and really befriending your sexual energy so that you learn to work with your sexual energy and not against it. Because that's what a lot of guys do. They're trying to make their sexual energy perform in certain ways, and that is only going to work in a very limited way. But when you learn how to be in your sexual energy and to befriend your sexual life force and learn to work with it, to harness it, to cultivate it, then it will come to a point where you're able to actually surrender and let go and allow yourself to be guided by something that's bigger than us. It's not something that we can figure out. It's something where we allow ourselves to surrender to something that I like to refer to as magic or divine or sacred. It's when we fall into or tap into flow and being guided. And from this place, you will have very, very, very different sexual experiences. So it's something completely different. This is why I almost always refuse to answer questions from guys that send me messages and ask me for tips and tricks and techniques, because I'm saying it's irrelevant. Until you learn to understand your sexual energy and work with it so that you can surrender and go with the flow and tap into the magic lovemaking potential that you have inside you. None of those tips and tricks are going to do anything more than very, very fractional improvement, if that. So to say a few more things about this, the new paradigm, the other paradigm. So from this place, when you learn to work with your sexual energy so that you can be present and surrender and go on the wave, really go on the wave of the flow of your sexual, divine sexual energy, you be able to tap into something that is already inherent in you, something that you're already capable of doing. So this is where I want to assure you that this is not something that is only some people have and that's not available to you. It is available to you. It's available to every single man. But it's very different to the way we've been conditioned to approach our sexuality, because you've all been approaching it from a place of doing and trying to figure it out and trying to perform. And that's where the problem is, because like that, you're limiting yourself to a frequency where there's no magic. And in the next paradigm, it's all about magic, because when we do surrender to that flow, to that something that's bigger than us, whatever you want to call it, amazing things happen. So this is where your magic lovemaking abilities exist. And this is where time disappears and you be able to make love for as long as you and your partner want to. It's where pleasure is magnified exponentially in every moment. Is where gravity almost ceases to exist. We become light and flexible and fluid. And we become orgasmic. We don't need to reach peaks of orgasm to release, but we become orgasmic. Every moment becomes orgasmic, and we become empowered. We become fulfilled by this energy that can't finish. It's an energy that helps you and supports you and guides you to move in amazing ways where there's no need to think about positions, because bodies will find the most amazing positions. Bodies will move gracefully and beautifully and perfectly in tune and synchronicity when you connect with your sexuality from this elevated place that I like to refer to as the next paradigm, because it's got nothing in common with the old paradigm where most people have operated, because that's how we've been programmed and conditioned. So this is pretty much what I wanted to share with you today here. And you know, I work with men, you know how to get in touch with me. So if you want to know more, get back to me. Okay, lots of love and have a beautiful weekend. Okay, bye-bye.